Hello, beautiful beings of light. Welcome back to Alchemy of Awakening. My name is Holly Hawkins, and if this is your first time that you've landed here, you are welcomed with open arms and hearts. This episode is a special one for me because I've brought in a dear friend and fellow Lightworker. I'm so happy to share her with all of you since she is a truly exceptional person who has this vast amount of experience in the world of personal transformation, of healing, and supporting people on their awakening journey. But not only that, she also supports those of you who are interested in on that book writing journey. She's excellent with that as well. So my sweet friend's name is Jaime Fleres, and she currently lives, surprisingly enough, right near me in the physical in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's also been an interesting and truly unexpected journey that we find ourselves literally in the same area too, because you see, I initially met her on the other side of the country when I lived in San Diego, and so did she. We both lived in the same area. And initially I met her when, along with some others, I regularly offered an event at a local yoga studio that involved crystal bowls and channeling the angelic realm. Each time we offered this event, I would channel the angelic realm, crystal bowls would be played, channeled messages from the angelic realm will be shared with everyone in the group, as well as individual questions would be answered. That's where Jaime and I first connected when she came to one of these events many years ago. Then time went by. She moved from Southern California, and so did I. Eventually, unbeknownst to both of us, we moved across the country and landed here in this area surrounding Asheville, North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I actually had no idea she was here when I moved east, but she reached out to me and we've shared many long, engaging conversations over the phone, but mostly over delicious local meals or a cup of tea together. When we get together, we have a lot to say. We share literally everything about the whole gamut of life, from parenting, relationship stuff that we're dealing with, channeling, consciousness, and so much more. So now, before I share our awakened conversation, I do want to share just a little bit more about Jaime with you. I consider her truly a Renaissance woman. She is an author. She's a transformational guide, the founder of Whale Song Creative, where she has helped literally hundreds of authors write transformational nonfiction, as well as memoir books. Her work lives at an intersectional place of creativity, psychospiritual work, and soul-based initiatory thresholds. She's also a trained shamanic astrologer, a certified somatic healing practitioner, an initiated shamanic priestess, a sound healer, embodied movement practitioner, and an intuitive guide. And what's truly magical about Jaime is that she weaves all of her gifts together in service of supporting others to reclaim their voice, their agency, and creative essence. And she does all of it with kindness, love, compassion, and vision. As you get to know Jaime through our conversation, and if you'd like to find out more about her work, I've put all the links for you to find out how to connect with her in the description below. And so without further ado, I'd love to share the awakened conversation that Jaime and I shared together. I truly hope you enjoy it, and feel free to share your favorite aha moment in the comments. Take care. Enjoy. All right. So here's my beautiful friend, Jaime. And Jaime, it was such an incredible introduction that you had. As we've talked about before, you do so many different things, but they all fall into a category in my mind of the way you help and work with other people is supporting everyone through all the different things you do, including all the publishing and editing type of work that you do for all the light workers, is you're helping people share their light, elevate their experience of life, and particularly at this time when we have so many new potentials, new thoughts coming onto the planet in terms of what our potential can be, and then living from that place, not just having it as an idea, but have it as an embodied, lived, transformational, transmitting type of experience.
Yes.
So I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. It is so good to be here, and thank you for such a warm introduction.
And so Jamie's a personal friend of mine, and this conversation we're going to have right now is actually one that we have all the time when we go out to dinner or out for a cup of tea or on the phone. But here we are having it for all of you to share in the types of conversations that we have and where we go. So the questions, Jaime has seen them before, but I want to just start off. So this is big. And I want to just introduce the idea of your point of view on what do you feel the awakening or the ascension is, just from your point of view, because there's so many different points of view out there.
Yes, yes. And there's so much I could say because there's so many aspects of this. And I think that's part of what's actually happening during this process is that we're moving from perhaps a more limited consciousness or awareness or capacity to access information and experience. And we're moving into something that's much more multidimensional. So there's lots of facets of reality or of existence that we're beginning to tap into. And I think part of this awakening period is inviting us to expand into greater consciousness, which, you know, when we move from perhaps like what we call like 3D consciousness to more multidimensional consciousness, it also includes this human realm. So I think that's a really important part of my perspective is that we're not here to transcend or go up and out of our human experience. We're actually here. I think part of the awakening is how do we become more awake in what is here and now, in what we might feel is the mess of being a human, you know, what it means to be an embodied being on a planet that's in flux, that's in a massive period of transformation. How do we actually be here? So when I think of awakening, I think of waking up to more of what is here, whether it's in ourselves, whether it's amongst each other, like what's between us. You know, I know like Holly and I can span from like girl talk about relationships to like how we do channeling work. Like there's lots of levels of access points at which we can connect. And I think that's part of the invitation of this time is like, what are all the different layers and levels and possibilities of how we can connect, how we can be here with each other in all of it. And so I think part of what this asks us to do as well is to hold multiple perceptions at one time. And then we move from binaries, like it's either this or that, you're either on my side or this or another side. We start to hold multiple truths at the same time. And we're able to navigate the nuance and complexity that our world really invites us to meet.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I love that idea of it's not just the either or. There's this beautiful, yummy and, or this beautiful, yummy gray area that multiple truths can exist. And we don't have to be hardly one way or another. We can be expansive in that. I love that. And your expression and your explanation of the awakening is very aligned with mine also, that we're not trying to jettison out of here to get to some other dimensional reality, that they're all here and we're learning to expand and include more multidimensional awareness that's always been there.
Yeah.
And so that we have a greater energetic sophistication is the way I like to think of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like being with the nuance and complexity of what actually is rather than a more limited perception of what is. The other thing I want to say too is that, you know, the image I get of what some view in the ascension process is, I think those of us who kind of want to get off the ride, you know, it's like there is this impulse to like want to get on a hot air balloon and just kind of coast above everything, you know, and I think that energy exists in the spiritual world, you know, in the spiritual culture that we are in right now. It's like, well, I just kind of want to like rise above it and just kind of float away. And from my lived experience and the way that my system is oriented, I don't feel that that's the way, like actually to go to some kind of new thing. That's not ascension, just kind of floating up and away. To me, ironically, it's the more we go down and into our lives and into our bodies and into our feelings and into our sensations, that's the way through. And that's the way into whatever this burgeoning and emergent way of being on this planet is like about actually going into our lives even further.
I agree with you completely. And I think part of it also is there's been, which is probably a whole another conversation for another time, just this idea that like basically 50% of polarity or duality is bad. And if we're experiencing it all, there's something wrong with us or with our choices or with our life or our perceptions. And so we want to avoid those difficult moments, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, but that's where the juice is, through the gritty experiences, because that's where we can break open, as the oft quoted saying is, the crack is where the light gets in. And it really actually is true. And so this idea that we don't need to just float away to bliss bunny land, but like what's breaking through and coming about in terms of our greatness as a result of some of these more polarized moments that we're in. I do want to share, just out of context, Jaime and I talked about this a little before we started the recording. Just for context, both Jaime and I live in Western North Carolina. So both of us have been navigating in our own way what the Hurricane Helene experience has been. And I think for both of us, that has shifted our perspective and our perceptions of what life is, and really recognizing some of the yumminess that really can come out of some of the trauma and the hard times that I know I wouldn't have learned had I not had that hard time.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't have. It would be more theoretical, more ideational, and not grounded into my body, my awareness, and my choice to move forward differently. I don't want to go back to what it was before. I want to be changed by the trauma. I want to be changed by what I experienced. And I know what I experienced was a fraction of what some others are experiencing. And it was still very deeply impactful. So I want to move into this more open-hearted space that was so clearly getting catalyzed through these experiences here in Western North Carolina.
Yeah, I thank you for what you just shared, Holly. I feel like what you just shared is such a beautiful example of how we can move toward what is challenging in our lives and what is so, like all the layers and levels of that reality, right? And saying like, I want to engage, like I want to be moved and changed and shaped and refined or just made more myself through my lived experience. And I think that's, that really ties into all of the modalities that I love to bring in, is like, we're not going to just stay in concept of like what we should do or shouldn't do. Like, we're not going to stay in the mental concept. We're going to have a lived, embodied experience that fundamentally changes something about who we are and how we walk in the world. And I think we also have that, we can do that externally or internally, and we can also do that externally. Like, forces continue to shape us through our lived experience. And if we're willing to be in that tension point where we're like, there are parts of this that are really, really challenging and really heavy and really difficult. And there are parts that are opportunities and they're beautiful. It's like, these are the multiplicities that we get to hold and to be with both. Be with things that don't seem like they can coexist together. Like, I'm grateful and I'm also, kind of, traumatized, like that. Absolutely. We can have all of it be there. We can be in all of those parts of ourselves and all of those parts of our experience and lean in and say, I'm a yes for what's here for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing also just your perspective on the awakening and ascension in the bit that you did. And I'm wondering, you've touched on this, but if there's more you want to say about how does that perspective inform you and your own life, and also with all the different types of people who you work with, whether it's in group or one-on-one, or with the way you support authors in birthing their writing babies into the world, which is, it's such a different but essential part of all the energy work type. I'll just put it under that category. I'm sorry to say it that way. You probably have a better way to say it, but just all that work is going to be informed by your awareness of the awakening.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of places I could take this question or this invitation. I think one of the things that helps inform how I walk with clients is that I am really engaged and devoted to my own inner growth and inner work, and I'm always working my own growing edges. So I'm deeply engaged in the work of embodying the things that I teach and the things that and so I walk my own path, like what's mine to me in my life. And the deeper I do that, the more I become the person who can hold space for whatever is needed in relationship with another. So, I think a lot of my work, like we said, like, oh, there's all these things that you do, but there's one thing that I always be in that situation, which is my own self and my own presence and my own consciousness. And so that's what I bring to the moments with clients. And so it depends on the context or people, right? It depends on the context that we're maybe meeting in. But really what I'm doing in all cases is coming with my deep curiosity, my deep compassion, my deep presence, and my willingness to be with what is actually here for us. So, even in my book work, right? Like that's the work of helping authors bring their books into form. But what we do a lot of is meeting the whole of ourselves. So sometimes it looks like talking through a person's relationship and how that dynamic is impacting their creativity. Sometimes it looks like doing some deep parts work around the critics inside of us that are holding us back. So the work is the field that I hope that I intend to craft and hold for others is big enough to include everything that is needed in that space.
Yeah.
So it's big enough where it's not like, oh, well, no, only these parts can show up because we're doing this work. Like, certainly there's boundaries on, my the containers I set, but there's enough room for what is to be there and for us to meet it on its own terms. And I think that that's my hope, is that kind of container creating allows people to bring more of that compassion to themselves and that acceptance and that willingness to allow what is actually so to be there, and for us to step into a real honest, vulnerable, like non-linear journey together. And I don't believe that I have anyone's answers or anything. I don't actually think there's anything for me to fix or solve about anyone. But I know and I experience again and again that when I companion someone and hold that vision of like, they're the creative, they've got this, there's a process underway, whether it's in the healing or the writing work, things happen. Like the magic happens, the evolution happens, the shifts happen, the transformation happens. And my job is not to facilitate that or make it happen so much as just keep holding the field of possibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And what you're describing is, to me, that truly holistic, integrated vision that you would have for anybody who you're working with, as well as yourself, because as you said, you're always walking your talk, walking the walk, as I do too. The things I teach, the way I work with people, I'm doing it myself all the time. So I'm not out there, just as you're not, just like talking about things that should happen that I'm not actively engaged with in my life right now. So it really is that holistic, in the truest sense of the word, application, if you will, of the awakening, that container of holding more. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me personally, because we do have, I think it's in our spiritual culture, and I think it's just in our culture in general, we have a lot of, there's kind of this insidious, like, I need to fix or change something that's wrong. We have such a, like, what's wrong and how do I solve it kind of paradigm that we live within.
Yeah.
that I've found the juicy space for me is is being able to hold a slightly different energy. Again, it's like more of that curiosity in that space where things can be allowed just as they
Mhm.
are, that there really
Mhm.
isn't anything to fix and there isn't anything like, oh, I should be this, should be that. It's like, what, let's just be with all, can we make room? Like I think of it as like making more room. Can we make more room for what's here? And then once those things are acknowledged and validated as what they are, then they start to move, but we're not like forcing parts of ourselves into something. And I think there's a lot, I think sometimes in spirituality we get this like idea that we have to look a certain way and do a certain thing, and like these parts of us that feel messy, my grief or my heaviness, like those are all bad and wrong, so I have to like kit them out, and we cut ourselves up into pieces rather than
Right.
like the work that I love to do is like, how do we bring more together? Like, how do we bring more of ourselves, more of
Right.
these parts? How do I welcome in grief? Like in this moment, I'm like, how do I sit with grief in one hand at the losses that our community and our region has experienced, both the land and the people? How do I hold that? And then how do I hold all this resource and all of this capacity and all of this opportunity here? And like, I always think of it as like, how full range can I be?
Exactly.
And I think our lives and the forces upon us and within us and for us right now are asking us to stretch, like to
Absolutely.
more range, like so feel the high highs and the low lows and be able to be with all of it.
Yeah, I agree. And also not then once we settle a bit, not contract back to what we were before, but stay in that expansive place where there is a greater capacity and potential.
Yeah.
So I have a big question for you. Well, I guess a few big questions.
Okay.
So, without it sounding like it's from your website kind of mission and purpose,
Yeah.
I want to hear, more from your heart, your spontaneous moment here. What do you feel like your purpose is here, or your mission, or that sort of pole star vision that is your like soul level why?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is a big question. And it's also one that's fun to discover. I feel like it's something that can be in process. It's where we are in the moment. And I think there are also these through lines that we all have that like we could say, well, oh, it's slightly different, but there's always a theme that we ourselves, that trajectory that we could say, yeah, I'm on that trajectory.
Yeah. 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 So the way I come into this question, and I do love this question around purpose, because I think again, uh, I think there's been a pressure, like as we all grow and become more self-aware, like who am I and what am I doing here? And like I have to know, and it has to match my job title, and it has to be something I can like say
Yes.
in a sentence. And and that feels like it can put a lot of pressure on something and maybe create an identity where actually we're in relationship to like this guiding star or this like this inner compass we have. So I do my answer to this question is always in evolution. I was asked this question a couple months ago in a community call, and my answer, which was kind of strange, was I'm here to lend my consciousness to what I'm invited to experience on this planet. Like,
Wow.
I'm here to be present with my own unique consciousness and be as present as possible to whatever I'm asked to walk. Like, that's really what I'm here for. And and then from there, I can get more specific. But that's like really what ties it all together is like, what is this quality of consciousness that that I've gotten to bring into body and walk a human experience with? Like, that's what I'm here for, is to just be myself, like in all moments. Like, that's really it, which doesn't really say much that like the human mind wants to take and go, okay, you're that, but
Right.
that's really the biggest umbrella. And then when I think about, you know, and then I think about, yeah, so my job, my purpose is to be here fully, like with what is in my life and what I'm asked to walk, and to be the full range of both my human self and my divine self, like
Mhm.
in all ways, and in my animal self and my, like all aspects of me. And so then I think about, okay, well, so if I'm bringing my consciousness to the planet, if that's my job, that's my purpose, then there's certain places like for each of us that we have more energy, like more curiosity, more interest, more natural inclination, more skill set, and so I think for me those threads of my purpose and mission, I think I have these threads, like you say. So I have one thread that's about like healing and embodiment, like how do we heal and become more whole? How do we come into these bodies and not want to like, jump ship all the time when things are hard? Like, how do we do that? Like, that's been a question of my soul. Um, creative expression is such a through line that comes through in the book work and in the dance work I teach and in the the art that I all the things. Like, how do we creatively express ourselves in this world?
Mhm.
Like, we get to be we get to be physical and have our creativity come out in that way. And then the rest really for me is about relationship. So if you could whittle it all down, I'm like, I'm here as a being of consciousness that's really curious about relationships. So that looks like human relationships. That looks like how I am with the nature all around us. Like I'm very animistic. So I very much see all of the living world as other sentient beings that have,
Yeah.
And so how am I in relationship with them? And then how am I in relationship with the cosmos? Like as a channel, like we both channel, like how am I in relationship with these other beings from the unseen realms that I'm asked to be kin with? Like, what does that mean
Mhm.
in that context? So I think when I think of relationship, I think of it in all those levels. And I'm always curious about those things.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the relationship part of it, that's so expansive, isn't it? Because it's really everything.
Yeah.
We really are here to be in relationship.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're talking about your family of origin, any close relationships, intimate relationships we have over the years, our children, the people with whom we work. I mean, just goes on and on. And to your point, our communities, our planet, like everything is relational.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you. That was really exquisite the way you said it. And that energy of you saying you're here to be yourself in every given moment, like that's exactly what we're doing in my mind in this awakening process. Is rather than taking other ideas and concepts and try to fit them onto us, but like really discovering who am I right now that I can bring to this moment and actually decide that who I am and all my uniqueness is yummy and beautiful, and I'm going to accept it. And I see all of it, what I would consider the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it of who I am is really exquisite. And like that one sentence, be yourself in every given moment, that's huge and really lovely.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love that.
Yeah, full range.
Yeah, totally full range.
Hot mess, totally divine, and everything in between.
And it's all divine, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's part of that when you talk about the and part of it
Yeah.
and not the either or. There's a very common conversation in these spiritual healing realms of the good and the bad, or the high vibe and the low vibe, and it's all a vibe.
Yeah.
And it's all divine and it's all spiritual, and it's all in the same unified field. It's all in the field of infinite possibilities. So a lot of it is how do we want to be in relationship to those things?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to share too with that, because I sort of set out those like three worlds, right? Like the nature relationships, the human relationships, and the divine relationships. But I do want to say through my own lived experience that they're all one thing still, right? It's
Yeah,
like they
absolutely.
different things, but they're all one thing. They're all like, how do we do this dance of self and other? And so I've found actually, because I think, and I want to speak to this because I think sometimes in our spiritual journeys, we feel a sense of separation from our lived everyday life and the kinds of experiences that we might call mystical or magical. And we don't always know how to make a bridge between them. And I've found, I mean, I can go into channeling work and be in my multidimensional consciousness and talk to, collectives from other places. But that relationship is still like, I'm still a human in that relationship. And those relationships actually teach me a lot about how to be with humans and how to be with the nature beings. Like they're all one experience of me learning how to relate to my environment and to the others, capital O. And so I found that there's yeah, it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's like
Absolutely.
I'm learning to walk, and I think I bring a lot of the medicine that I get in the other realms to my human relationships because they can be a little trickier for us. And so like they help inform how I can do my daily life, but I don't to separate them would be a missed opportunity to actually learn how to integrate some of those teachings and some of that wisdom. For example, when I work with my guides, like there's so much consent in those connections. Like there's always like, I'm a full sovereign being, you're a full sovereign being. And like, we're choosing to come together in this really, um, safe and generative, and like there's a lot of goodwill in the space, there's a lot of kindness and
Mhm.
patience, and those qualities that I find those other beings really bring to me, and I get to practice with them, teaches me how to be in my daily life too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And they aren't separate. Oh, it's that kind of relationship there, and I'm not going to have that kind of relationship anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's all again part of the field of unity and
Right.
oneness, and we don't need to separate them out.
Yeah,
Everywhere you go, there you are.
there you go. Exactly.
Right.
Love it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And loving what is, right? Byron Katie.
Yeah.
All right. So, what would be another big question? What would
Mhm.
be your vision or view for humanity or the planet consciousness, however you want to slice and dice that, or in the
Mm,
unified conversation we're having? What do you feel is your vision of what's possible?
Gosh, that's such a big question.
It is. That's what we're here for.
I
Awakened
know. Oh, I love
conversations
it. I
are
know. I
paid
love it so
conversations.
much. It's just my brain wants to go in five different directions, which is typical, and I love that. Well, I think on the heels of the relationship conversation, and again, I'm so oriented around that. Like my vision for humanity and this planet is, I want to be careful with my words because I think there could be words I might use here that don't feel entirely accurate. I think there's a space, the best words I can use right now are like right relationship, like how we come back into communion and community and connection with all of life. I mean, really, like what we were just talking about, like my vision is like, how do we come back together? So we might say like a more heart-centered way of living. That feels like a shortcut to say, maybe something I'm trying to touch upon. But I do think that we have an opportunity to relate to each other, to the planet, to the cosmos in a more coherent way with our own beings, with the essence of our being. So we're not operating from survival strategies or defense mechanisms or,
Mhm.
these polarities that we see so much in our culture of like right and wrong,
Yeah.
good, bad. It's like there's another way that I think, um, one of my mentors, Charles Eisenstein, says that it's the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible.
Mm.
And so I think that that's what I'm stumbling on my words, so forgive me. But
No,
I think,
that was beautiful what you just said.
oh,
That
thank you. I'm
yeah.
like, what am I even saying right now?
No, the quote you just shared feels like it's summed up what you're trying to share with us.
Yeah. I think at our core and in our hearts, we know how to tend each other and this beautiful planet that we live on. And we've had a lot of distortions and a lot of forgetting, and it's okay. It's all part of it. But I think that we're at this beautiful opportunity of awakening again, so that we can come back to who we really are, be that, know that, live that, and then share that with one another. And I think that that's that's where we're headed, even though it might not seem that way. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of, disheartening and hopelessness on the planet right now because there is a lot that's in flux and uncertain, and that's scary for a mammalian system,
It
It
is.
is. It just is. I asked my guides, they've shown me visions of what we're headed toward, and I'm like, how are we going to get there? That seems like it's going to be kind of traumatizing for the human on the human level. And they're like, you just use your tools. Like, it was a very loving, clear, firm, like, you have everything you need, but you've got to use the tools. Like, you've got to do the work. Like, you've got to go in and through it, and you
Right.
have what you need. And it's going to be messy. And, so I think in order for us to move back and, back into, but also into a new iteration of what humans have always meant to be, there's going to be upheaval. There's going to be change. There's going to be discomfort. And, you and I are living that right now with the massive upheaval, of a natural disaster.
Yeah.
And the question is, like, who are we becoming?
Right. And who are we letting ourselves become through the process?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, talk about through lines that, who do we want to be no matter what's coming up for us? Like, and continually bringing ourselves back to our choice and how we want to be with ourselves and the world around us in my mind, in an unflappable way, rather than feeling like what's happening out there, whether it's in your home, in your community, in the country, however you view that doesn't need to destabilize myself to the point that I can't be who I want to be. Yeah. I can't fulfill that vision for myself and how I am in the world.
Yeah.
So if you could share one thing with the people on the planet, people listening to this, just at this moment in time in our awakening, it doesn't have to be like for now to eternity. What would be on your heart to just share one thing with people that you feel would be helpful?
Yeah.
Supportive.
Yeah, where my heart goes in response to that question is like kind of two keywords here is self-compassion and gentleness. I think we're walking a lot of challenges, a lot of us in on many fronts. And there can feel like a overwhelmingness or a hopelessness or a helplessness when we look out into the world. And so I think, and a lot of the teachings say this, it's like we have to come back inside, but really this is where everything starts. And so I think, one of my practices is how can I bring more self-compassion? We've talked about it in this conversation, like how do I allow all parts of me, the messy, the parts that I feel great about, the parts I don't feel so great about, like how do I really hold myself with a lot of compassion and a lot of gentleness and a lot of tenderness through all of it, and I'm not, like I let myself fall apart and come back together again and be a mess and then be the guide and the leader and the steward that I am as well. So I think it's really, I think some of the biggest work we have right now is that softening. I think the world wants to make us hard. And so one of the most radical acts we can do is to keep softening to ourselves, with ourselves, for ourselves. And that softness that we can bring to ourselves, that kindness and that gentleness, when we can really give it to ourselves, we have a greater capacity to begin to bring that to others and the world, which is what we need. Like, we don't need more fighting. We don't need more, I know this one thing for certain, and this is the rock I stand on and will die for, we need some softness and some compassion and a lot more of that gentleness. And that doesn't mean weakness, and it doesn't mean, lack of boundaries or any of that. It actually is, has all of that as part of it as well.
Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Softness and compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with this question, I go to, if we take a moment to drop into that space, what would the world be like? What would the world look like if we were all more self-compassionate and kind? And we're holding that vibrational frequency so strongly for ourselves. It's naturally what transmits out from us, and it will color, if you will, the way we see the world, the way we respond to the world, all of it. And what if we were all that way? What would that world look like?
Yeah.
And to your point, with it anchored right here. Yeah. No one else needs to change. No one else has to have a different political, governmental, community-wide there's no blame, shame, or anything else. It's just like right here, right now, I can hold this space, and that's what I transmit out into the world around me. And I hold that space for other people to do the same. I invite everyone to take a minute to feel what that might feel like and that potential. And that's the place we're empowered, isn't it?
Yeah.
To create that sacred space within ourselves that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have had, as always, such a lovely time with you. And thank you for showing up for this awakened conversation. And it's just always an honor and privilege to be with you, whether we're out for a tea, our dinner, our long phone conversations, whatever they are. And now other people get to get that slice of Jaime as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
And if any of you are really inspired by Jaime, details on how to get a hold of her will be down in the show notes below. But thank you so much for your time today. And as we're both in the same part of the world right now, I know this puts a timestamp on our conversation, but it is a moment here where we particularly reside on the planet where there's a lot of energy and lots of ways for us to practice all the things that you're sharing that we both know, and ways that we can expand into our next level of greatness. So I wish you all the best navigating this time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
you.
You were born for this.
Yes, exactly. Thank you again.
Thank you.